Hi everyone, I'm Haley. This is Bitter Kitten Crafts. This is a channel where we talk about knitting and crocheting and yarn, and this is my cat, Boo. And today I wanted to talk to you all about all the yarn I bought in 2024. So my goal for 2024 was basically to not buy yarn, not like a harsh no buy, but just more of like a mindful purchasing situation, because I have a lot of stash yarn that's old, like 6, 7, 8 years old that I still haven't used or I don't really have a plan for, and I want to get it out of my stash rather than accumulate more new beautiful yarn that's more exciting to use. So we'll start with the FOs. I have 4 FOs from yarn that I bought this year that I bought it and I like immediately used it. What happened? That I bought it and I immediately used it, and then I have more yarn than that I haven't used yet, and we'll talk about whether or not I have a plan for it. And then I'm gonna make a separate video about like my stash plans for 2025, because I have a whole stash make 9 planned. But I've definitely found that it's more exciting to use new yarn, like obviously, and the people who track their stash in Ravelry so that they like track their sweater quantities and like what they have, like, oh my god, that's so impressive. I really struggle with that. And as a result, my stash is sort of large. But let's go ahead and get started. I'll start with the FOs that I made from yarn that I bought this year, and then we'll move on to the stash. Hello, Boo. So I made 4 FOs with yarn that I bought this year. One of them isn't super usable, so I'll just save that one for last. If you watched one of my last videos, you would have already seen 2 of these, but I'll just quickly go over them again. So I'll start with one I haven't shown. This is Hedgehog Fibres Tweedy, and I actually knitted this just this month in January, and this is yarn that I got at a swap. So I spent the summer in Cape Cod with my in-laws. Hello, Boo. I spent the summer in Cape Cod with my in-laws, and they have at their local dump a swap shop. And like, okay, hear me out. At the swap shop at the dump, people can bring things and just leave them there for others to take. And it's sort of like a one in, one out policy. So if you bring donations, you can take stuff. And I found a skein of Hedgehog Fibres Tweedy at the swap shop, perfectly intact, wound up but not used at all. Someone had knit like a swatch with it, and then I guess they decided they hated it for some reason. I can't honestly imagine why. And so then I just took it home and I knit, this is Jason's cashmere hat, and it's a pattern by Sweet Fiber, and I'll put the name of the designer below, but her Instagram handle is Sweet Fiber. And this is a pattern I've knit like probably 10 times for gifts and for children, and now this is like an adult one for me. And DC has been crazy cold this winter, and so I needed like accessories. In a different video I'll show, I knit some other winter accessories this year too for myself and my husband, and I'm really happy with how they turned out. I mean, this yarn is so cute. It's just so happy and cute, and honestly cheering up this sort of miserable January. Yeah, so I'm really happy I knit this. I will definitely not be purchasing Tweedy in my budget, to be honest, because this is a quite expensive yarn that, I mean, only in Cape Cod would somebody leave this at the dump. So I'm really happy to have had it and to have an FO with it, and I have already worn it a bunch, so there's probably cat hair all over it, so sorry if you can see that. Yeah, so that's, otherwise I'll just keep rambling. That's all I have to say about this one. Besides, the yarn is so squishy and lovely, and warm. So if it wasn't my budget, I would definitely buy more to make a sweater. I also knit 3 garments this year with yarn that I purchased. One of them is busted a little bit, and I showed it in a different video, so I'll just quickly show it. This is the Cozy Classic Light by Jessie Made. As of right now, it's not super wearable because I have to alter the collar and the cuffs, and it also has a hole in it. So this is a work in progress still, but the yarn is purchased at Maryland Sheep and Wool from Yarn Hero, and she does these beautiful mill ends from her yarn, and you can get, it's like $20 for 100 grams. but a lot of them are light, so you have to kind of pick and choose, as you'll see with some of my stash. That's kind of the fun of it, is to pick the ones that all match. So I love this yarn. I mean, you can see like it's stunning yarn. I just have to figure out how to sort of salvage this piece or whether or not I'm gonna frog it. So this FO is also one I showed in a previous video, so I'm also gonna kind of skate over the pattern details. I will mention it's Mount Pleasant by Megan Nodecker. Her handle is Pip and Pin, and this is a pattern that I have knit before and I plan to return to. And this is a very cute little lace bottom tee that I knit it with significantly more ease than the pattern recommends, just to use up all my yarn, and also because the pattern recommends like pretty much 0 ease, and I felt like it might be cuter over linen pants as more of a drapier garment than like a skin tight sort of situation, and I was right, at least for my taste. So this is yarn from Carodan Farms. It's their treasure collection. And this is yarn I bought at Maryland Sheep and Wool. It's a 50/50 merino silk blend. And I am absolutely anticipating purchasing more of this yarn at Maryland Sheep and Wool again this year. So if you're noticing that I bought a lot of yarn at Maryland Sheep and Wool, you'd be right. I really have, basically my no-buy left me, or my mindful purchasing plan for 2024 left me with no ordering yarn off the internet. If you find something good at the thrift store, take it home. If you find something good at a festival that's in your budget, take it home. But otherwise, you know, there's plenty of sweater quantities under my bed in bins to use up. And as you'll see with my 2025 plan, a lot of my sweaters that I'm going to make this year are striped or sort of amalgamated together, which I find so fun. I love stripes, but it's definitely gonna be hard not to buy all the beautiful yarn at the festivals that are local to me. Okay, so my last sweater is a little bit of a preview for my Everything I Made in January video, and this is the Daily Pullover by Paula Pereira for Pearl Soho, and the yarn is Bonfire by the Yarnsmith, which is a local company to me. I live in Maryland, just outside DC, and they're local enough, I think they're in Pennsylvania, they're local enough to come to the Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival, which is in Virginia. And this is the show color for their Shenandoah Valley show. And I loved knitting with this yarn. This is a 75/25 merino sock blend, which was another sort of, my plan for 2024 was not to buy any merino sock blends because I have a lot in my stash and I love the way hand-dyed yarn on that base looks, but it's just, I have a lot of it. I'm realizing that color really motivates me in my knitting, so a lot of the choices that I've made in previous lives I've lived with yarn that I've purchased, I just don't like the color anymore, and that's like why it's still sitting in my stash. But there's nothing I can do about that now. It's definitely more exciting to knit the new yarn and to knit the beautiful yarn with colors that are in my current color palette. And this show was in October, so I think that's part of the reason why this color really spoke to me at the time. I mean, it's like a perfect fall color, but I'm really, really happy with this one. So as you might be able to tell, I really like to use yarn that I get new. So my goal for 2025 is to use up the yarn that I've accumulated, whether it was in 2016, whether it was in 2024, just use up the yarn I've accumulated, and I'm allowing myself to get yarn at Maryland Sheep and Wool. Probably 2 sweater quantities. One will be this Carodan Farms Treasure, the silk blend, and then one will be some sort of speckly yarn, just because that's like my favorite and I can't help myself when I see it. But let's move on to the yarn that I haven't used up yet from my stash from 2024. I bought a lot of alpaca yarn, or I ended up with a lot of alpaca yarn this year. 2 of them were gifts, and actually all the alpaca yarn I got this year was gifts. But I love alpaca yarn. It is tough to put it into a project sometimes because of the structural integrity of it not being super structurally sound. And the drape is glorious, but I haven't knit a lot of wraps, and so part of my project plans for 2025 include using some of this yarn up in a wrap or an accessory mindfully. So the yarn that I'm holding, this is yarn from my bachelorette party. So my bridesmaids know me so well, and they know that I am not like an kind of girl. And so they took me to an alpaca farm in Virginia, and I was able to pet the alpacas and meet them and squish their little faces and feed them. And at the end, I was able to pick yarn from my favorite colors of the alpacas. So they had several ranges of colors of alpacas at their farm, and none of these are dyed. These are the natural colors of the alpaca hair, fur, wool, I guess isn't the right word, I don't know. So I was able to get some yarn from the friends that I had made, and I'm really excited. I actually don't know how much yardage I have, like literally at all. I have literally no concept of how much yardage this is, but it should be enough to knit like a colorwork shawl or a colorwork cowl or something like that. And the drape is glorious, and it was so fun to meet the alpacas and cuddle with them, and I'm really excited to have an accessory to remember that experience with. But I also have been sort of keeping these like as precious, and that's part of the reason I haven't knit them, is because I don't know the yardage, and I don't want to start something and not have enough yarn, and I don't even want to wind them up because I want to remember my little bachelorette party, but that's silly, so I should use them. So this little basket is the rest of the yarn that I got this year, and I'll start with the other alpaca. So as I mentioned, I spent the summer in Cape Cod this year, and part of the stuff that I got was yarn. I got it as a gift. I was working in an art gallery, and the owner of the art gallery was friends with the owner of a different art gallery down the street, and she also happens to run an alpaca farm at her home, and it's called Bittersweet Farm Alpacas. It's in Wellfleet, Massachusetts. And so this yarn, she gave me 5, and this was milled in 2020, and you can see, I hope you can see, that's the face of the alpaca it came from. His name's Albright. And so this does have yardage on it, thank God. So this is 600 yards of, no, 125. This is 500 yards of worsted weight alpaca. It's pretty much enough to knit like a little pullover or something adjacent to that, especially because I think it'll block out beautifully. But I really haven't picked a project for it or made a plan for it at all, other than to just touch it and look at it and know that it will make something stunningly beautiful. And this is also undyed, as you can tell by little Albright's face there being the same color. But the drape and the texture of all of the alpaca is so beautiful. At first I was thinking I could knit something with them together because it is pretty much a similar, you know, it's a very similar color, but I thought I should preserve like the bachelorette yarn and the wedding yarn separately from this gift I got over the summer, especially because 500 yards is enough to knit something, and I would hate to have like a lot of leftovers that I don't use. So it's kind of a lot of like thinking, like I'm probably thinking too much about it, but that's okay. I'm gonna give myself some slack. So this is the rest of the yarn I got this year that I haven't used, and honestly, if I really focused, like I could probably knit all this yarn in 2025, but that's not my plan. My plan is to use some of it and see where the wind takes me on the rest. Some of it might take me like until 2026 to knit up, and I have accepted that. Like, it's not the greatest feeling, but I do know that I don't think I'll be able to knit through my entire stash in 2025 or 2026, which is something to reflect on. But in the meantime, let's just talk about the pretty yarn and put that thought aside. So I will show, this is yarn that I actually do have a plan for. This is Rising Tide Fiber Company, which is semi-local to me. They're on the Eastern Shore in Maryland. So, you know, 3 or 4 hours from me, but still local in my state. And this is the same, well, this is also a 50-50 merino silk blend. So the woman who owns Rising Tide, she was at the Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival also, and she had this yarn in her clearance bin. And I asked her why, you know, was there anything wrong with it? She said, no, I just had 2 skeins left total of this base, and so I threw it in the bin. So I got these skeins for $15 each, which I was really happy about. And I love the speckles, but I'm not sure how it will knit up yet. So we're gonna have to do a little swatch, which I despise. But my plan was to knit the same Mount Pleasant tee that I knit the red one, except to not do the lace and instead to do like a 3x1 rib on the bottom. The drape of this yarn is really nice and the yarn's so soft. And I loved how this other t-shirt, the other t-shirt I just showed, I love how it turned out so much that my plans for 2025 include purchasing more of that yarn as well as knitting this. The climate here where I live just outside DC is like a swamp basically. So most of the year, January's been exceedingly cold, but most of the year I am not able to wear like a worsted weight merino wool sweater because it's just not practical for my climate, which is part of the reason that I purchased the merino sock yarn so much and I am gravitated towards this because it was warm enough even still in like October and like parts of like the first couple weeks of November to wear the merino silk tee that I made. It was like 65 degrees and sunny, you know, definitely not cold. And like even today, you know, it's like 42 degrees here, so not cold, you know, chilly, but there's only a very limited window where I can wear like a merino wool worsted weight or even a different kind of wool worsted weight sweater. So I'm basically going to show all fingering weight yarn. So as I was mentioning the mill ends from Yarn Hero, who is local to me, she lives like an hour north of me up in Maryland. And this is a sweater quantity that I got from her mill ends. So you can see that this one's probably over 100 grams. This one, you know, these two are certainly under, so is this one. So total, this is 240 grams or something like that. So definitely enough to knit a sweater of some kind. This sweater, my daily pullover came out to like 252 grams. So I could definitely go a little shorter, like crop it somehow. And I have plenty of yarn to knit another sweater. So this is a green and pink and blue and orange stripe situation when it's wound up. And I'm hoping to just knit a fingering weight garment, just stockinette with this. I haven't picked a pattern yet. I really like the daily pullover pattern and I've knit it twice, but I did mod my second version that I just showed a lot, which I'll talk about in a later video. I'm really interested to see how the stripes of this knit up, because as you can kind of see, it's like many colors. So I'm thinking the stripes will be really thin, but I'm kind of hoping that green will be the predominant color, but I'm actually not even sure if that will be the case. So this, I'm really excited to knit this up. I'm hoping to knit this up this year. It's in my 2025 stash plans, but I also don't want to be too optimistic. Okay, my battery died, so I had to take a break for a sec, but I'm back and I have 2 more yarns to show you that I'm hoping to knit up actually in 2025. One of them is another mill ends set from Yarn Hero, and this is a lot more yarn than the green yarn. So this is like well over 300 grams of yarn. I'm hoping it's showing on camera okay. This is like a purple and orange and sort of reddish dark bluish blend. But the thing about this quantity is that not all of these are the same. Like the green one, they're all pretty much identically spun. This one has like neon red in it, so I don't know if I'll end up including it. This one has a lot more blue than the others, and then I have 3 that are pretty much the same, and then 1 little baby blue one. So I'm not sure how I'll end up knitting these all up together. It might be just a really mismatched sweater, which could be really fun. But this is one of my first cast-ons for the year that I'm planning, and I'm really excited to knit this up. It's also, like I mentioned, from Yarn Hero, her mill ends. And if you are ever in the market for yarn and you're interested in Spin Cycle, the price difference between her mill ends and Spin Cycle, I mean, if you were to knit a Spin Cycle stockinette sweater, it could be like easily 400 bucks, but this is $20 for 100 grams in her mill end section. So definitely worth checking out. Definitely worth checking out. And if you get a little baby one, she does it by weight, so you could get your color work, you know, it'd be a very affordable situation. So just thought I'd throw that in there. I really struggle to resist her booth at every market or festival I go to, so the likelihood of me buying another sweater quantity of hers is high, especially if I knit this up. I'd love to get like a neutral sweater quantity from her, like either like a brown marl or a black and white and gray marl. I think that'd be beautiful, because I just love how the colors look so much. My last yarn that I bought in 2024 is from Painted Sky Alpacas. This is from specifically Titan the alpaca, and this is DK weight. It's 3 ounces for 175 yards, and it is gorgeous. This was purchased for me as a gift from my husband. I took him to Maryland Sheep and Wool for the first time ever this year, and I wasn't sure how much he would like it, but he loved it actually. It was really fun, and he snuck off and got me this yarn. It's in his favorite color, so it's kind of like a hint hint, you know, type situation, and I don't know what to knit him. I really am open to suggestion. I'd love to knit him something while the weather's still cold enough to use it, especially because this is alpaca. So it'd be fun to knit him a little accessory situation, but, oh, this is Boo. But I have no idea what to knit. So definitely open to suggestion on this. Please comment with an idea. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Please stay tuned for my video about what I'm actually going to be knitting in 2025 for my stash. And I'll include some of the projects I showed, the yarn I showed today. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.